come to this happy place, welcome.
What is it about Disney that makes us happy? Is it the magical whistle as your ticket is scanned at the main gate? Is it the seafaring smell of pirate water? Or is it charting a course to a land where you may never grow up? Whether it's singing a familiar song, watching a movie, or riding your favorite attraction for the 100th time, Disney undeniably has a way to warm our hearts, believe in magic, and bring joy into our lives. This is Main Gate Magic, a podcast where we break down and discuss the infectious happiness, delight, and thrill of all things Disney. Well, hello and good evening, everybody. It is Tuesday, July 30th. I can't believe we're at the end of another month.
Yeah.
I am Jason with Main Gate Magic, and with me, as always, or almost always, is my lovely wife, Lisa. How you doing, baby?
Good. Hey, everybody.
And we are rocking the Chinese New Year ears in honor of our special guest here today, Mr. Chad Frye. Chad, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you.
Yeah, we have quite a big crowd here. It's a big audience, so that's why all the applause is there.
You squeeze them in. Squeeze them in good.
I know we do. It's such a small little screen too. It's just like a little weedy screen. Unfortunately, our other co-host Mimi is unable to join us due to a scheduling conflict at last minute, but it's okay. We're able to carry on. The Bradens are on the job. So we've got lots of questions lined up for our friend today. And before we get to that, though, we're going to just kind of do a quick recap of what we talked about last week. Last week was the yester-ears, and yes, I did say ears, of Disney parks. And we were talking about all of the rides and attractions that were originally open either with opening day or, in the yesteryears, that are no longer open today. And it was a lot of fun. We reminisced about a lot of things, but we also found out that we really didn't have enough time to discuss all the ones that we really wanted to talk about. There's just so many.
So there's probably
but it was a lot of
part
fun.
two. Let's just say that.
Yeah, there will probably be a part two. We have to bring it up again because it was just so much fun, and we kind of just scratched the surface. It was literally just the tip of the iceberg. For those of you who have joined, I see we have like a lot of people today.
Yay.
Actually, more than usual at this early. So I'm very happy to see all the guests. If this is your first time, welcome, and just be aware that the comments section of whatever platform you're watching from is turned on. So feel free to pop in and just say hello. You can ask a question later on if you want to, or make a comment about something that we're talking about. It is open and moderated by myself, and I will, if I choose to do so, if it's polite enough, we'll keep it clean. Then we will put it up there, and we'll make sure that our guest gets to see it, and we will interact based on your questions. So, with that, Mr. Chad Frye,
Yes, sir.
First of all, thank you so much for coming on today. I really appreciate it. I know you kind of signed on a couple of days beforehand, but I do appreciate it. We were supposed to have another guest on here, but unfortunately, like a dummy, I got a date wrong, and I had a few other people lined up in the canon here, and you were definitely on my list. So thanks for joining at such last minute.
You're welcome.
I do appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. By the way,
Absolutely.
I'd like to point out that right now I'm dressed just like my logo. So
yes.
Art does imitate life sometimes. So
It does.
It actually does. And you know what? I should have thought about this early. I didn't know you were going to do this until we signed on early. I wish I would have been able to have a copy of it available that I could throw up on the screen to show everybody. But if you guys want to see what he's talking about, chadfrye.com, Frye,
Yes.
correct? Is
Yes.
that right? And if you go to, I think it's the illustrations portion of your site, that's where your caricature exists, isn't it? Or is it the animation?
It's on the main website as a head, but yeah, I have
Oh, that's right.
It's in my animation section where you can see the whole turn. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, but yeah, it's exactly what he's dressed in and everything, and it's a great caricature too. So, with that in mind, if nobody's guessed at this point, why don't we go ahead and tell everybody what you do for a living or what you have done for a living?
Sure. Well, I mean, the short answer is I'm a cartoonist. I'm an illustrator. I work in animation as a storyboard artist and a character designer. Just anything that lets me draw is basically what I do. So I've done books. I've done TV shows. I've worked on movies. Magazine ads, articles, even. So yeah, whatever it takes to draw something.
And given the nature of our podcast, any specific company that you've drawn for in the past that might be notable?
Well, maybe Disney. I put in
Disney a few times here and there.
I put in almost 10 years with Disney. All
Oh
total.
wow!
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So where are you from? I saw that you're originally from the East Coast. Is that right?
Yes, correct. I grew up in New Jersey, of all places, but
Oh.
it is a good spot. There's not far from where I grew up was the Joe Kubert School of Cartoon Art. I didn't go there, but I knew people that did, and I ended up meeting some of the people who taught there, like Joe and Greg and Tim Hildebrandt. Their studio was just about 5 miles from my house when I was growing up, so I got to meet guys like that. It was a good place to be from. Yeah.
Would you say they were kind of like your mentors growing up?
Well, I didn't meet Greg and Tim until I was a senior in high school. My senior art teacher, Greg, had been his best man in his wedding. So when he saw my potential, he took me over to them and introduced me, and then we became friends. Every time I went home, I would pop in and visit with them. So yeah, I mean, I learned stuff just from sitting there chatting with them, because they'd be painting while we'd be talking. And
That's so cool.
it was always a lot of fun to see what they did. But I have to admit, I don't really paint with acrylics or oil, and those guys were masters of that. So
that's got to be tough. I don't know if I've ever painted. I mean, I paint with acrylics when I paint my little 3D printed models, but never on canvas before. I've just never had the guts to try that.
Yeah.
We got a couple of people that wanted to say hello. Patricia, Patricia's our loyal fan. I think out of the 16 episodes we've done so far, this being the 16th, I think she's only missed one show. So she's our loyal fan. She always says hello.
Nice.
And Lola's also on, and she says, "Hey, Chad."
Oh, hey, Lola. I know Lola.
Yep, I'm figuring, because I think she's actually popping in from your feed. So I mean, at least we can verify that's working.
Great. Yeah. Good.
Yeah, I'm so happy to hear that too, because it hasn't worked the last couple of times where we just didn't know exactly how to get your account linked. So
yeah.
Oh, and another one from your feed. I
Hey,
don't know how to pronounce that name.
Yeah, Sansere.
Sansere. Okay.
Yep.
What a lovely name.
I worked with her at Disney. So yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
So, you mentioned that they were always painting when you were there and everything, and you said you were just a senior in high school. What would they be painting while you were hanging out with them?
Oh, I can't remember what it was in high school, but I know not long after I had left New Jersey and was going back and visiting, they were working on Star Wars trading card set. So, in fact, over on my wall, I have a picture of me with Greg and Tim, and they're holding up a Millennium Falcon painting that they had just finished. So, yeah, that was a beautiful trading card set that they had worked on. And of course, those guys are the ones who did one of the first Star Wars movie posters back in the day.
Oh yeah, see, I was going to ask. I mean, were they actually working for Lucas at the time, or were they just like commissioned, or what?
Well, I'm not sure if usually the way these things work, you're hired by the licensee, which would have been the trading card company, I would imagine. So, but it was a whole set of cards just by them, all themed to Star Wars. So, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know about you guys, but I used to have a ton of Star Wars trading cards. Tons of them, like stacks, fat stacks.
Yeah.
So there she goes. She's confirming we worked together at Disney. Disney. Okay. Yeah. So when you guys were both at Disney, you guys were working together. Artists as well?
Sansere, were you involved? I think she was involved in technology from an artistic standpoint, but I ended up working with many different divisions, because I should say, when I was at Disney Feature Animation, my job was more behind the scenes as a teacher of the artistic technology, which was new at the time. So they were still doing hand-drawn films, but I was brought in as an artist to learn some of their in-house software. Some of the external software, I think Photoshop was in version 1 at that time.
Wow.
I was kind of the guy who learned that and then taught it to other artists and even other technology people. So yeah, it was it was an intense time because everything was changing at that time period. It wasn't all on paper. Some stuff was on paper, but the computer was being used quite a bit back then.
Yeah, and it was a big thing. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah. So before that, though,
Yeah.
I mean, you didn't just get interested in drawing, meeting them, did you? Were you interested in drawing even before that, like even at a
Oh.
younger age?
Yeah. No, my mom, every year on my birthday, my mom would ask, what do you want to be when you grow up? She started asking me that when I was in kindergarten. And I always said I wanted to be an artist. So
Since kindergarten?
yeah. So I knew from a very young age. Now, that doesn't mean there was the possibility of that. I still drew like a 5-year-old. I do have somewhere here a drawing I did at that age of Disney's Winnie the Pooh, not based on the book, but from the cartoons. And then I don't know, 30 years later, I ended up working on a Winnie the Pooh TV show. So it all came around, and I guess the practice started back when I was 5. So
Okay, before even hashtags were invented, hashtag life goals, people. Just make sure you listen to this and learn from it, because it is possible. I mean, if you dream it, you can do it. I think that's even a quote from Disney or something along those lines. And if not, it should have been.
no, it's not a Walt quote. A lot of people would say that's a Walt quote, but it was actually written by an Imagineer for, I think, something at Epcot Center. So
That probably makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's, I think that's one of the things that I did think about at one point, that we should do sort of a what do you call it, the Mandela effect of Disney or something like that. How people think, oh yeah, Walt Disney said this, or this ride used to have that, or that character used to look like this, when that never really happened. I'm sure there's a lot of stigma out there in regards to that kind of stuff, and probably Walt's quotes too. So
Yeah.
all right. So all right, we talked about the East Coast. So how soon did it take for you to realize that you needed to move to a different area to start getting more involved with the bigwigs?
Well, I actually, my career started when I was still in college. I went to school in South Carolina, and because I actually illustrated a few children's books. I guess starting the summer after my sophomore year of college. In fact, I pulled one out here, and this was my very first children's book. I started on it in 91. It was published in 92. And it's a kind of a Christian version of Where's Waldo, which was the big rage at the time.
Okay.
So it's all Bible stories, but all done, like Where's Waldo, watercolor and ink, and they were all in.
I have seen that before.
Yeah.
I have seen that book before. Yes, absolutely.
Well, it led to a sequel, which I did the summer after my senior year. So, so there were 2 of them. Yeah.
And everything in that book is illustrated by you?
Yeah, and the publisher wanted to do a book like this, and I got to pick the stories, and I wrote them, and there's little blurbs in there to write the story, as well as having all the things to look for. But those were a couple of my first projects. And then from school, while I was still in South Carolina, I got hired at an animation studio there, which was my first animation job. It was in Gaffney, South Carolina, which is usually known for the giant water tower Peach that's next to the highway. But I worked for a small animation studio there called Dungeon Ink and Paint. That was a little cinder block building behind a car wash. And I remember when the Olympics were in Atlanta, the torch came running right past our studio. So we went outside and we saw the torch run by, and then we went back in and continued to animate. So, and I wasn't animating. Yeah, go ahead.
What kind of things did you animate for them?
The main project was the King's Quest Princeless Bride game. That was a home computer game, but
King's Quest?
The Princeless Bride was the subtitle for the one I worked on.
Sierra, right? Sierra Software, is that? Oh my God, I used to play that game all the time.
Oh, yeah.
Huge video game nerd. I used to play video games when it was on the PC, and it came with the, the floppy disk, like the stack of floppies that you had to insert one at a time to load. It was a pain in the butt, but it was so fun to play.
Yeah, it was a fun game. And of course, they were a little more bitmap versions of King's Quest before this one came along, but this one was all hand animated on paper. and we shot our drawings, and then they would be sent to Sierra for coloring and putting into
Digitizing, if you will.
however they
Yeah.
did it back in those days. But I think I
Wow.
worked on 1 or 2 chapters of that game. So
Mhm.
yeah, but
And how long did you stay there for?
not long. That studio was really the hobby of a medical doctor who had a family practice around the corner. He was our boss, and he would come in with to us once a week, and then the rest of the week he was seeing patients. So
Wow.
because we were his hobby, I mean, even all our animation desks were built by his father. They were all handmade desks.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
Wow.
so yeah, he just couldn't keep it going because his attention was divided, So I think it was less than a year that I was there before they had to close their doors. So we worked on another project too. I don't even know if our work was used. It was for another video game, and I can't even remember the title of it. But they just couldn't keep the doors open. So
The animation at that place though was primarily done for video games.
well, they were just an independent studio that would take work from anybody. Those just happened to
Oh,
be
okay.
the projects that I was there. Yeah.
I see.
So I'm not sure what they worked on before I got there, but
So when
yeah,
when did the California bug bite you? I got to ask that because that at some point I mean, maybe it was after the fact of your year after this was over. You're like, I need to move up to bigger and better things, or what was that final push that moved you out to the West Coast?
Well, I wanted to work for Disney when I was younger, and I always liked Disney as a kid, but I thought I would do comic books.
Okay.
But when I was a senior in high school, my art teacher and we shared a love for Disney, and we went and saw. He took me to a presentation at his alma mater, which was Montclair State College, with a Disney rep who came to show us little scenes that were unfinished from a new movie coming out called Little Mermaid. And
Oh, that one.
yeah, and before that, some of the movies didn't do as well, and they were kind of under everybody's radar. Like I like them now, Great Mouse Detective and things like that, but Disney wasn't necessarily at the top at that point. And when we saw Little Mermaid clips, our jaws were on the floor. We couldn't believe it, and that's when I was like, I have to work there someday. I have to. But after that job in South Carolina ended, I ended up sticking around in South Carolina for a few years, and I instead worked as an illustrator. Some friends of mine that I had interned with, Dell and Dana Thompson, had an illustration studio in Greenville, South Carolina, and I worked there for a while, assisting them with books, and I really kind of learned book illustration with them. Obviously I did a couple before that, but they did a lot of licensed character books, and so I helped out on this one. This was when X-Men 96, the original 90s version of the X-Men were on TV. And this is a little pop-up book.
Is that like? Oh, it's a pop-up. I was wondering if it was a graphic novel because it looked like it had
No,
hardcover
they
on
did
it.
a series of children's books to tie in with the show, and so those guys were doing some of those, and I helped out on a couple of them. Dana had,
Now I got the X-Men theme song running through my head.
but I started working on Disney stuff there. Like this is one that I helped out on, and we even did
Our good buddy Mickey Mouse.
a large little golden book based on Hercules, with the little sound chip in it. But 3 of us had to paint this in a week, the whole book.
Oh, wow.
It was a really tight deadline, but I did get my hands on some Disney books, and I did some Disney coloring books back then too.
That's amazing. Now,
but-
when you're an illustrator and an animator, is your job like a 9 to 5, or do you pretty much only come in whenever there's work that needs to be done, and it's not like all every day of the week kind of a thing?
Doing freelance like that?
Yeah.
It's, I would say, longer hours than a 9 to 5, quite frankly.
Oh, yeah? Okay.
Because if you have a project in, there's usually tight deadlines, and you got to really get them done quick. And if you don't have anything, which there were lulls, then I was always working on improving my portfolio with new pieces. And I was spending a lot of time creating mailers to send out, because this was before the internet was a big deal. You couldn't just send emails to everybody with pictures. You had to go to the trouble of making cards and mailing them out to potential people who could hire you. I even took my portfolio up to New York City and visited publishers and magazines trying to get work. You just kind of try to make appointments, and you go around and just show them your portfolio, and they say thank you very much, and then they never call you again.
Oh, it sucks.
It's a tough slog back then with that, but I don't know. I think it's the noise is louder now. There's more people, and everything's coming at them digitally. I don't think they have a chance to see everything that's sent to them anymore.
Now, I know we're going to kind of flash forward a little bit here, but have you done digital animation before?
No, in fact, after that job in South Carolina as an animator, I decided I really didn't enjoy animating. I didn't enjoy making characters move because it took so long.
Yes.
It played just like that. It was
Yeah, I can imagine you spend hours on a project just for like maybe 3 seconds of film time, right?
Yeah, it was insane. So I preferred the illustration side of things, and I don't think I really fully understood the process of animation until I started at Disney and saw that there were storyboard artists and development artists, and because we didn't really have art of books back then either. I mean, I had the Illusion of Life book. There was that, but there was no art of this, art of that, that you can see all that behind the scenes artwork. So I really wasn't aware of all that until I had visited the studio and I saw it on the walls. I'm like, oh, these guys are really good. I will never work here. But I did get there, but just not as an artist at first. So
yeah, never say never. That's definitely one of the things it's a mantra of life that I believe is always true. Now, when you got to Disney, did they like throw you right into the fire pit, or did you just start off on like a small project, or were you like on a major motion picture automatically?
It was tough. Well, I had to spend a lot of time learning the software, primarily the software CAPS. I don't know if you'd heard of that, but that was their production software that everything funneled through for the movie. It was they did their camera shots in it, they colored in that. That's where ink and paint was in that. Everything was in that. Mulan was the first project I was involved with, but I had to spend a lot of time learning the ins and outs of that software, and often sitting side by side with another instructor as he taught people. And eventually I started giving classes to people in that and dealing with specific issues that the film needed. So while I wasn't creating content directly for the film, I was showing people how to do their jobs with the software. That was the nature of my job at that time. So I worked with technology people, I worked with artists, I worked with everybody. Yeah.
But what was the first film that you actually started working on? It was Mulan?
Technically Mulan. Yeah, I didn't get a credit on that because they didn't give everybody credits back then.
Too many names?
Yeah, that's what they said. At the end of the credits, it'll say, "And special thanks to our support staff."
Oh, wow.
By the time Emperor's New Groove came around, they were like, "No, this is silly. We're giving everybody credit." So I started getting credit for movies for beginning with Emperor's New Groove. Yeah,
that's such a fun film too. I'm so glad that you got credit for that one, because it is one that I don't think is discussed very often in the Disney universe, but it's something that still deserves a lot of credit because of how amazing it was. The animation was great, the characters were amazing, and the cast that they hired to voice these characters was just incredible. I still love playing out the scenes in my head, and there's a friend of mine that I do the Kronk impression, she does the Yzma impression. It's kind of how we met. But Leia, if you're out there and listening to this, I'm talking about you, of course. Yeah, such a fun. Now, what part of the animation were you involved with for that movie? I mean, I can't imagine that you're like sitting there drawing for like every single frame of the movie. You're doing like certain segments, I'm guessing.
No, but that's what I'm saying. I actually wasn't drawing for the movies.
Oh,
no.
Oh,
I was doing this computer stuff, showing people how to do that.
The software. Okay, I see. Gotcha.
So that's what I did at Feature Animation. I did internal drawings that were used for training purposes, but I wasn't drawing for the movies at that point. The first time I was drawing for Disney was when later I started working for Mickey Mouse Clubhouse and then I was drawing on every episode. So, yeah.
Now, what kind of how big of a team is involved for something like? We'll just use Emperor's New Groove because you said you taught these people the ins and outs of the software and everything to kind of get them up to speed on how everything works. You must have had an idea of like how many people you were gathering together and teaching that. Did everybody need to be taught, or was it just a few that just weren't caught up to speed yet?
A lot of people needed to be taught different things, so but not everybody. The animators never really needed to use this software, but what they did need to use was the digital pencil test system, which was also an in-house software, where they could go and shoot their own drawings and then watch the playback immediately. Because in the old days, it would have to go to camera, get shot on film, and then you have to wait until it's developed, and then you can see it. So they had developed this digital system that they could do, but it was tough to figure out if you didn't have someone showing you. So I taught a lot of animators and cleanup artists how to use that. And then there were a lot of development artists that I was showing how to use at the time Fractal Painter and the early version of Photoshop. So I did have a lot of notable people even that came through for classes with Photoshop. Like I taught Glenn Keane, I taught Chris Sanders, people like that, as well as development artists like Paul Felix and these guys. Once they saw how it worked, they didn't need any help knowing how to draw. That's not my thing to teach them.
Right.
Just showing them the software, and then they just took off like a rocket with the technology. So,
now, did back then, at least, I don't know for this or if you want to even go back further, were they? And I'm asking this because of a Lego set that we bought recently and put together for Disney's 100th anniversary. But did they still use multiplane cameras back then, or was because it was going more to digital, did it kind of go the way of the dodo at that point?
The multiplane wasn't being used anymore when I started there.
Okay.
But because they did have a digital way of doing that.
Right, because it still looks the same, but just produced a different way now. Yeah.
Yeah. From what I was told, they only had built 3 multiplane cameras ever, and we did have one on display on the lot. I think one was on display for the animation exhibit in Florida, and then one was at our studio in France, from what I understand. But they were just statues, basically. We didn't use those anymore. But it's
gigantic paperweights.
Yeah. But like the opening, The Rescuers Down Under was the first full movie shot in caps. And that opening sequence, you see how deep that was when they're flying.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Flowers. Yeah, it's amazing.
Yes.
That was like the last shot they did because the technology wasn't quite there when they started on the movie. To do that with such depth, and with the traditional multiplane camera, it was limited to just 10 layers maybe.
Oh wow, that many at that time, huh?
I think it could go 10 layers. Don't quote me on that, but but you have hundreds of layers with that opening shot of Rescuers. I think the software was crashing every day back then when they were trying to do that.
Probably server rooms about as big as an apartment complex, I'm guessing, because I can't imagine how big those computers must have been at the time.
Some of those first CAPS computers were actually hardware built by Pixar. We were using Pixar computers.
Oh.
Because they were a hardware company as well as a software company, and then they started doing their own movies too. So,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, they kept an old Pixar computer in the computer room just as a reminder of where CAPS had started.
Where it all came from. Yeah. Gotta see like the bones of the system. I remember watching the trailer for The Rescuers Down Under. Now, I'd always been a big fan of The Rescuers when I was a kid. So much so that we actually named our dog after one of the rescuers. Our dog's name is Bianca because she was a rescue.
Oh, nice.
But I remember watching the trailer for the second movie, and I'm like, how can they make a sequel to this movie? Because Penny got saved and everything, right?
Right.
And then you see Cody, like trying to get to help the eagle out. Marahute, I think is what her name was. Yep. And they show that scene where he's like riding her back, and his tears are coming out of his eyes and everything. And then she spreads her wings and she flies out into the sky, and it's even still gives me chills to this day because it was just so beautifully shot. And I mean, despite all the crashes they may have had, I'm really glad they got it right because it was very impactful at the time.
Yeah. That's
Lib
beautiful.
is online. Lib says loved The Rescuers. Yeah, that was The Rescuers. Both movies are just very, very well done.
Yeah, I like them both a lot.
So besides software, because it sounds like you had to learn from scratch. I can't imagine that is an easy thing to do because even, like back then it was a lot of DOS based stuff, and I'm sure there was probably some learning curves there that might have been challenging. Did you face any other challenges? Like what other kind of challenges do an animator face on a day to day basis?
Ooh, well, the software was always the biggest. I had three
Is
computers on my
that?
desk. I had a
Oh
Mac.
wow.
I had a Mac. I had a Linux machine, and I think I had a PC as well, uh,
Hmm.
because different software would run on different machines. So it was tough to keep it all straight. But yeah, that was probably the biggest challenge. More, it was like, even though I found it very challenging for what I was doing, I just loved going to work there every day. Um, you didn't, just to see all the art. I was heavily influenced by all the art I was exposed to there, and my own work was slowly growing behind the scenes. When I was doing my things at home, and sometimes I was doing artwork for them that was on display for educational purposes, or I made a poster once for Goofy with the supporting the troops because they were doing a letter writing campaign for the troops.
Mm.
I would
Hmm.
be asked to do things like that, but I wasn't drawing on the films themselves. But I was
Was
learning
this
all the
back
time.
with the Iraq War back in the day?
Yes, I
Or
believe.
no, or is it Desert Storm maybe?
Was Desert? No, I think Desert Storm wasn't that the one that started back in the early '90s.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that was
early
91.
90s. Yeah. Hmm.
I don't know if it was quite that anymore, but it
Okay.
was. It was over in that part of the world though. So, yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
So it was the brown khakis.
Well, thank you for supporting the troops in any way you could. And I love the fact that you said that you just loved going to work every day because
Yeah.
you love going to work, but then when you love doing it so much, it doesn't even become work anymore. It just becomes something that you just love to do, regardless of the fact that it's a job. And
Yeah.
that's something that I hope to be able to do someday.
Yeah. I didn't think it would end.
Retire from my full time job.
Everything
Huh?
ends. I didn't think it would
Yeah.
end, but everything ends.
Yeah, eventually it does, but I mean, we can find other things to move on to that still make us happy. That's
Yeah.
the cool thing about life, I think. You just got to look in the right spots.
Yeah.
So what about life after Disney? Since you said it did eventually end, what did you move on to after that?
Well, after the 6 years of feature animation, I moved on to just trying to find work as an artist. I was like, I'm done doing the computer teaching. I want to get back into drawing because that's what I started as, before going to Disney. Um, so I was looking around, and ultimately I ended up getting a job with Tony Bancroft's personal company. Tony had been a director on Mulan. He had animated Pumbaa. He animated Kronk. But he got together with a couple of friends of his, and they started their own studio, which lasted about 5 or 6 years. And he hired me to go over there and work. And I basically was doing, I think my job title was PA, but I was really doing a lot of storyboard revisions at that point.
Oh, okay.
We worked on a we worked on the Tinkerbell movie over there, when it was going to be 2D, and then they scrapped everything we did and switched it all over to a CG movie.
Uh huh.
We were working on a Barbie movie. We did a little
Oh,
little Lilo and Stitch short cartoon that went on one of the DVDs. There was things like that that were being done over
okay.
there. Yeah, they even did
But
the
that's
animation. They did the. I didn't work on this part, but they did the animation for the live action Bewitched. There was an alternate animated opening title with Will Ferrell, and
oh yeah, Will Ferrell and Nicole Kidman, I think,
yeah,
Yeah.
right?
Hmm.
that was
Yeah,
done.
that's right.
That was done through Tony's studio too. So yeah,
Okay. You mentioned lightly about storyboard revisions, and I know that that's part of something that's in your resume, so to speak, is that you've worked on storyboards. Did you ever actually
yeah.
create the animations or the pictures for storyboards?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I've done that. Last one I did was I did a few episodes of Alvin and the Chipmunks that's on Nickelodeon.
Oh,
It was
okay.
for the Bagdasarian family, but their show was put on Nickelodeon.
Are we talking about the series or like one of the movies?
No, a series. This was a series.
Okay.
It was Alvin with like 3 N's on the end, and the Chipmunks.
Oh.
It was written.
They're always finding some new ways to revitalize them.
Yeah. No, I did it for that. I did storyboarding for Mickey Mouse Clubhouse as well, not just revisions. Where I did some boards for an independent studio out in Woodland Hills today it's called Splash. I think when I started there it was called Moonscoop. But we did some out there. We worked on projects that were based on toys, like Zuzu Pets toys. You remember those little hamster toys?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, we worked on some
Japanese manufactured. I think they were big in Japan. I think at first, weren't they?
They may have been, but they were through a toy company called that wasn't RGH. Sepia. Sepia was the toy.
I might be thinking of the wrong thing, but I don't know. For some reason, Zuzu reminds me of like I would see like a Japanese commercial for it or something before it actually came to America.
Yeah.
I could be wrong. Thomas says, "Great to see you, Chad."
Hey, yeah, that's nice. Thomas's dad was the great movie poster Bob Peak, movie poster artist, I should say, Bob Peak. So
the great movie poster.
Tom's dad was Bob Peak, the great movie poster artist.
Okay. Sorry, I misunderstood.
Yeah, no. Maybe I didn't say all the words out loud. It was in my head, though.
So just so I mean, because I have no idea who's listening to this, to be honest with you, and I know that those that are watching can see, but we were not really showing any illustrations. Can you just explain to people really quick, like what a storyboard is? Because they do this for movies all the time, for animated movies, for live action movies, 3D animated movies, etc. So just give like a quick preview of like what they are, and so that way people have a better idea.
Sure. Well, for complicated scenes in live action, you do it. But normally for live action, you can just pick up a camera and point it at something and shoot it. But with animation, you can't just pick up a pencil and animate it. You need to plan it first so that there's an economy about it and you know exactly where you're going and what you're going to do. So you work directly with a director and you have the script. And oftentimes, I should say, not always, but often you do. And then you just draw out the scenes panel by panel in a sequential way, kind of like a comic book, so that they will then film them. They'll shoot each drawing and they'll time it together on the screen so that then there is a blueprint for what the animators will do. So you draw in all the acting as much as you can, all the important movements that should be there. You're often working with a voice track that's already been done by the actors. If you don't have the final actors, you have some temp actors that have done it, which sometimes is just the guy at the desk next to you. You work it out in drawings like that so that they can figure out what's working, what's not, because nothing has been filmed yet. They only have the written word and they want to see it. And then they can make changes based on that before anything's animated as well. So it's a great way of working. It's a great way of planning. And in live action, they'll do that a lot, especially with special effects sequences. Action sequences will get storyboarded. Anything that's complicated, they want to get a blueprint out there first.
Yeah, so I've even seen storyboard animatics nowadays, where it's not just a single frame. They actually shoot maybe 12, drawn scenes, and they kind of animate it to make it flow a little bit easier and get a better idea of the action versus just looking at a single frame each time.
And that is, we do that for sure. That's where some of my animation training comes into play as a storyboard artist, is being able to do that smooth, and you're dealing with transitions between shots and all that stuff. So it's not, you're not the director, you're doing what the director wants, but you're putting a lot of thought into camera shots, composition, all of that. You have to think of the whole project as the film itself, whereas many other jobs are just dealing with one piece of it. Like an animator does the movements of a character, but there's somebody else designing the background, so.
Oh, yeah, it's true. Yeah.
And before they do it, there's somebody who's actually planning the shot in great detail with drawings before they even get to animate and do backgrounds. So there's a lot of hands involved. It's an assembly.
You brought up
Yeah.
something that actually kind of had a question in my mind that, and I can't remember. I think I've seen this here and there on behind the scenes
Yeah.
for certain movies and stuff, because you see people doing voices for characters all the time in like YouTube videos, TikTok flicks, things like that, right?
Yeah, sure.
Do the actors, they actually do the voices first before the project is even animated?
Yes. Oh, yes. I mean, I would say that in 95% of the time. Every now and then they'll have to go back and do what they say ADR. What is it? Automatic dialogue replacement, I think is what that stands for, something like that.
Okay.
Where they'll have to redo a line later. But no, you got to animate to the voice because the drawings can be timed perfectly to lip sync of a actor's voice. Yeah.
So that's how they're doing the frame by frame, is they are actually listening to the spoken word
Yes.
and animating it to that as they go? Because
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen tons of videos where you see the artist using the cells, or even just the transparent paper or something like that, and they're flipping it to make sure that it's animating correctly.
Right.
That might be going back a little bit too far, because it could have just been something where Foley artists maybe added stuff in after the animation is done to kind of go with whatever's drawn. But I've never seen anybody try to animate stuff and then they have like headphones on or listening to something while they're animating. That's why I was like, I never understand when it's done.
Yeah. Well, in the old days, I don't know, they would have had reel-to-reels next to their desks, but today they'll just have a digital file that they can listen to with headphones through their computer. But they
Okay.
do that same process with CG animation. The voices are recorded first.
Okay, I mean that makes sense because they want to get an idea of the character too, and like, and I know that they try to mouth pronunciations like of words so they can learn how to how the mouth works and everything, and how that
Yeah.
would look on paper or whatnot or on screen. So that I've always been fascinated with that process.
Yeah. No, it's a fascinating process for sure. They'll often use the temp voices with storyboard reels, but when it comes to the animation, they'll have the final voices before they animate. So, yeah.
So I heard that you were recently at San Diego Comic-Con.
I was. Oh boy. I've only been back 2 days. I'm still sore.
Are you
Oh,
really
wow.
sore? Oh, it was from
Yeah.
what? Just sitting or standing or walking around or
Walking.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I don't quote me on this, but I think the convention center is 5 miles long. No,
What?
no. It feels that way. It might be half a mile each direction. I'm not sure, but it is a very, very big hall in San Diego. And
It's been a long time since I've been there, but it is very, very long.
yeah,
Yeah. And I think they even also have other, I'm just going to call them quote unquote halls outside of the convention center where they do other panels and shows and stuff like that, because it's just so big.
yeah, it's expanded. I hadn't been in 17 years, and it's expanded. It's in all these other hotels. There's all kinds of stuff to do outside. Sometimes the baseball stadium across the street is utilized. It's crazy. It's just
And you got to be on a panel
yeah,
with
yeah.
some
I did.
other artists. Why don't you go ahead and talk about that really quick?
Yeah, I was invited to be a part of a panel about movie poster illustration, which is just something I like a lot. I've never actually created movie posters, but the other three guys on the panel were Bill Morrison, Kyle Lambert, and Ethan Pro. And Bill used to do Disney posters. He did the original Little Mermaid poster, and among other ones. Then Kyle is known for doing the Stranger Things artwork, and
Oh.
Ethan he's kind of new to it all, and he's been doing alternate posters for old movies for the print market. But all three of those guys are immensely talented. So, and I was there just to talk about the history of movie posters. So, yeah.
Did you guys have a good time?
Yeah, it was really great. We had a pretty attentive panel audience, I should say. So yeah, it was good.
A lot of good engagement and good questions and things like that.
Well, we didn't have time for questions, unfortunately, because they only gave us 50 minutes. And with four of us talking, we didn't get to question time. But some people,
I was going to say, is it that chat, or were you guys just talking way too much?
I don't know. I'm pretty shy about talking a lot.
I don't know. You seem to be doing a pretty good job of it here so far.
Not proving it. Yeah.
I'm not
But
trying to say anything, but I'm, you know.
we had people come up.
But you're just saying.
Yes, right.
I'm just saying, yeah. Yeah, I actually met Bill for the first time at Stockton Con. He was up there at the artist tables and, doing his work and, handing out illustrations and signing stuff. And not handing them out, he was selling them, obviously. But
Right.
super nice guy.
Yeah.
I mean, and so mild-mannered. There's like a calmness about him that I just love. And I think we kind of clicked instantly. And he actually said he wouldn't mind being on the show as well. So you're the first artist that we've had on this show, but he will very likely be our second.
Oh, good. He'll be a good one to talk to. And
yeah.
I appreciate that about his personality too, because we did serve together on committees before with cartooning groups. And he was always the one I would turn to. I was like, all right, how do we deal with this? Because you can just handle it without getting upset. He's always so good at that.
What about upcoming appearances? So you were at Comic-Con. I'm guessing that's not the only place you do, because you and I met at a MouseCon.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure we talked about this already, but you're going to be at the MouseCon coming up in Salt Lake City in October, correct?
Yes. What is that? October 19th? Is that the date?
Sounds about right.
Sounds right.
Yeah.
I hope that's it, because I don't want to give misinformation here, but yeah, I don't do conventions very much. In fact, when you and I met, that was the first convention I had done, which was the Bakersfield MouseCon, right?
Yeah.
So.
Oh no, I think you and I met first at the Concord MouseCon.
Oh, was the Concord? Okay, well then that was the
I'm
second
pretty
one.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. I have gone to other of the Bakersfield events after that. I think I've been to every one since then.
Okay.
But I'm pretty sure the Concord one is where we first met, because we had barbecue together the night before.
Yeah.
Remember that? And Irene Bedard was there, and Andrew was there or not Andrew. Jerry Cornell, my friend Jerry Cornell was there.
Yeah. Rick
and
Law
of course
was
Steve
there.
Wyatt.
Yeah.
Rick Law was there. He actually goes to I think almost every one of the mouse cons.
Yeah, he does.
I gotta tap him on the shoulder too. I forgot that I've got him as on my list of people here. So
you want me to shout to him? He lives a block away.
Are you kidding?
No, I'm not kidding.
Yeah,
Wow.
Go ahead. We'll wait.
Hey, Rick.
So I'm guessing you guys are friends, neighbors,
Yes,
etc.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we hang out a lot.
Well, MouseCon is coming to Salt Lake City, I think, for the very first time. This is a new venue or new location for their venue, and hopefully they'll have more locations as well, because Concord and Bakersfield were the only ones they actually had before they went to Salt Lake City. But when I heard about Steve Wyatt doing this and everything, he's like, I think we're going to do this year, but then it happened, I think, like the year after that. But he apparently he's got some really good reception and some good feedback from people that are looking forward to attend. So I'm really hoping it'll be a good show.
Yeah, I hope so too. And does your audience know it is a Disney themed convention? So
it is a Disney themed. Yeah, for those who didn't catch MouseCon, it is definitely a Disney themed convention.
Right. It's not about rodents.
Right. No, not about rodents and not about pest control. But if you're going to be there, there'll be a pest. No, I'm just kidding. Maybe I don't know you well enough to have done that yet, but you know what? It's out there now. It's out there now.
All right. That's how it is.
But yeah, it is all Disneyana stuff, and there's vendors that sell Disney things. There's going to be voice actors and animators, obviously artists.
Right.
And I think Irene's going to be there again. She's the voice of Pocahontas.
Okay. Yeah.
I think Mary Gibbs and John Morris are both going to be there from Pixar fame. And a few others, I just can't remember them off the top of my head. But if you guys are interested, I think the site is mouse-con.com. And there's usually takes you to 3 little shapes on the front. And if you click the one for Salt Lake City, it'll take you to the information page for that particular show if you're interested.
Yeah.
But that's the only one that you have coming up, right?
Yes, that's the only one. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I like seeing you because you and I have always gotten together pretty well. I mean, you're just such an easygoing guy. And do you have any sort of like current projects in the works, or any upcoming projects you can talk about or anything like that?
Well, I'm working right now full time for a small educational company here in the area. So I've been doing illustrations for educational purposes for kids, and
Oh, nice.
on the side, I'm also assisting on a, syndicated comic strip. So I've got a got a lot on my plate right now.
Are
Between
you
the,
able to say which comic strip, or is that
no,
sort
no,
of
I can't say, but
okay? I
yeah,
understand.
Yeah.
I would love to, but I can't.
Yeah, I totally get it. We know about NDAs and
Yeah,
privacy and stuff like that. We don't want to spoil anything for you, and we don't want to get you in trouble. That's not a problem
yeah,
at all.
yeah.
I always ask, but I always understand that if the answer is no.
Yeah, so those are my main things, and then I take some freelance when it comes up as well for whatever comes along.
Awesome. All right.
Yeah,
Well, we're getting close to wrapping here. We're almost at the end of the hour. I've got a few things to do after you're done here, but
okay.
why don't you tell people, remind them where they can find your work, and
Yeah,
you can
sure.
plug your website, your social media, whatever you like.
Okay, well, chadfrye.com is my website, and there are links there for my socials. So there's Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn, where I usually go by Chad Frye Illustration Guy. So I got to get the rhyme in there, I guess somehow. But you'll see my little face on all those things. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's my social and websites. Check out my work.
If anybody's listening, it's Chad Frye, and Frye is spelled Frye. In case you're interested, because after every show, I also upload the audio to all the audio only platforms, so that way people can
Oh
listen
yeah,
to it only as well. So I just want to make sure that they know exactly how to spell your last name.
good. Well,
Yeah,
the audio people can't see this beautiful studio behind me.
I know. Or the beautiful red plaid shirt that you're wearing with the New York bell cap.
See,
Is that where all the magic happens?
this is my drafting table, which is an old Disney layout desk.
Uh huh.
So
Oh,
when they were switching to digital, they sold employees the furniture. So that's I'm working on an old Disney desk here. Yeah.
I hope you got a good price for it.
Oh yeah. Yeah. No,
Okay.
it's not like what you're seeing in auctions for furniture these days. But yeah.
No, 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 I'm sure. Yeah, or
But
even pieces from old rides and stuff.
Yeah.
you can only imagine what was drawn on that table, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
This is
yeah.
this is the kind of desk where they would have been working on planning the films. Like I said, there's artists that would
Hmm.
plan the shots and everything. That's what this desk would have been used for, and
Good point.
designing the backgrounds. Yeah,
That's so exciting.
yeah.
That's so exciting. Okay, well, I've only got a few things to kind of mention here for our
Yeah.
show before we start to close everything out. And number one, it's just our store. We used to have an Etsy store. The Etsy store is still up. I'm not sure if I told you this on when I was talking to you yesterday, but we have an Etsy store where I do my own little, funny illustrations on Canva. I'm not an artist per se, although apparently my new platform, which I moved the store over to TeePublic, TeePublic .com, is located at now. I've got 19 designs on there, and they are all Disney inspired. There are some that are just, kind of, fun, wacky, whimsical stuff, but others are mostly based off of Disney ideas. And you can get t-shirts, hoodies, tank tops, I think long sleeve shirts, baseball tees, hats, stickers, mugs, water bottles. You can put the design on pretty much anything that they sell. So if you guys go to teepublic.com and look for my store, Main Gate Magic, it'll be on there. Or you can also go to our link on Instagram. I have a link tree on there that actually has a link to the store directly on it, which is probably the best way to get to it. So just everybody who's listening, be aware. Please check it out. I'd really appreciate it. And if you like the designs, get something. Why don't you? I think there's still some stuff on sale too. So normally I think a shirt would be like $22. I think it's like $16 right now. So go on there and check it out and buy some stuff. Help support the show. We would appreciate it. Next week's episode still kind of up in the air, but I'm thinking the Marvel Cinematic Universe because of Deadpool and Wolverine out there right now.
Right.
I
Okay.
saw it on Saturday and I loved it. It was hilarious. It broke so many walls. I think the room probably had 5 or 6 walls instead of 4 walls. But it was very clever, very naughty, and very not Disney, but It's now officially part of the MC universe, so it definitely is Disney now. And in case those of you who didn't know, Deadpool is also a new Marvel character at California Adventures. You can actually see him walking around the Avenger campus, and he actually has a story time that he does with the audience, and also with Mr. Wolverine that comes out to join the show. There are some videos out there, so if you guys haven't seen it, go take a look.
Oh, and we didn't talk about soft opening.
Oh, actually, yeah, not really. I don't even know if it was. I think it's got to be a soft opening, but yeah, the Haunted Mansion. You okay?
Just getting a little tickle in the throat.
Little dry throat. Yeah, happens when we talk too much, huh? Happens to me almost every time at the end of every show.
Yeah.
The Haunted Mansion, yes, is technically open at Disneyland. They think they opened it on Monday, and they have guests that are able to actually join up through the virtual queue. So if you guys are planning a trip this week or beyond, you should be able to get on it. The whole queue is not open yet. They're still doing some construction, but they are filtering through the areas that are finished. Not much has changed on the inside from what I saw, but a lot on the outside, and from what I saw, it looks pretty cool. Can't wait to see it in person. It'll be fun. So with that, I'm going to start coming to a close and say thanks again, Chad, for coming on and sharing your life story, your work story, and all your fun animation stories with us. We had a really good time.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. It was a great pleasure. And for those who would like to recommend a topic for next week's show, we are definitely up for some suggestions. The Marvel Cinematic Universe is just one idea that we have. We have tons of them in the canon, but we'd love to hear from you as well. So please feel free to like and subscribe on, let's see, we got Instagram, we've got TikTok, we've got YouTube, and we also have Facebook, and of course the shop on now tpublic.com. Check out all the links on our Instagram site. There is a link tree directly in our profile. Thank you all for whoever joined. And let's see. Oh, we got a couple more final comments. We got a couple minutes here, so we'll go ahead and put those in there. See, we said Thomas's already. So King's Quest rocks, Chad. So cool you worked on that. I agree. I played Sierra games for hours.
Yeah.
Fun game. And our fan Patricia says, great show. Have a great night. Thanks, Patricia. You too.
Yes. Thanks,
and
Patricia.
I hope everybody else listening has a great night, a great day, whatever time you're listening to this. Thank you all for your support, and we bid you a fond adieu until the next one. Adios.
Thanks.
Bye, everybody.